All right, everybody. So we are here on our Friday night wealth creation course. It's great to see everybody tonight. Let me go ahead and go live on Instagram as well. Awesome. So guys, we're going to go live tonight on the topic of saving and investing money. Okay. And so on this topic of saving and investing money, I want to go over the fundamentals of it. Last week, we talked about how to earn more income. Okay, so tonight we're talking about the other point of the triangle, which is how do I then save? How do I then invest? Where do I put that money? Give me a second while I comb my mad savage hair back here. We're going to go over where do I put that money? How do I save it? How do I invest it? And really go into the details of how to do that. So again, if you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Jerry. I'm the owner and founder of Wealth Dynamics. And I've been doing a webinar every single Friday on creating wealth, on personal finances, on how to get your money right, how to save, how to invest, how to handle our finances. Okay. And I've been doing this every single week for 3 years now. And the reason being is this is not information I ever had growing up. Okay. I was very interested in it. For me, money was a sore subject. I had my family split apart over it several times. It was just the source of a lot of problems for me. And so for me personally, I hated money. Okay. And then I started learning about it, and I started realizing that I was learning from people that didn't necessarily know what they were talking about. They were not winning with money. They may have written books. They may have had radio shows. They may have, name brands on the topic. But what I was seeing is they would either share stuff that wasn't true. They were just repeating what other smart people said, or they were giving me only a little bit of the story. Okay. And by getting a little bit of the story, it's like following breadcrumbs. And so what started happening for me was I could start telling when somebody was just repeating what they heard Dave Ramsey say, or Sue Zorman, or whoever their influencer was that they were listening to or reading at the time. So I was fairly easy for me to predict that and detect, okay, this piece of advice isn't really this person's advice. It's just what they think the right answer is because of this radio show they listened to, or they heard from their friends at church. I was pretty good at that. But what I ran into and what I wasn't good at was detecting when somebody wasn't giving me the full story. Okay. What I mean by that is you'll see a lot of people today on whether it be Facebook or Instagram or wherever sharing how to build wealth and how they got there, but they only share the parts that for them are highlights. Okay. I ran into this and it was a wall for me because I didn't know why I was doing all the things these people said, but it wasn't translating into a result. Right. One of the ones that I'm going to cover tonight that we hear from influencers all the time is savers are losers. Okay. We hear the idea savers are losers. Don't save money. It's a waste. Okay. But the people that are telling you savers are losers, they're not going to tell you in the same breath that they save lots of money. Okay. One of the guys that says savers are losers, 2 or 3 months after saying that, did an interview saying he had $100 million in the bank. Right. So if I don't know that piece of data and I'm following, well, savers are losers, don't save money, spend it all on courses and put it all into, miniature real estate deals. Like I never end up having anything. And little do I know, that's not actually what they did to get there. Right. So when I started doing these courses, I was looking at, what actually worked for me. Objectively speaking, when I started, trying to apply this information to my finances, what objectively worked for me. And sharing all of it, sharing all of the steps, all of the parts, even the ones that are boring, even the ones that are redundant, because at the end of the day, that's how it works. That's how money works. It's not a mystery. So as we dive into this, guys, ask lots of questions. We're going to go over the topics of saving and investing. And again, we're going to pull this out of my book, How to Create Wealth. So if you have a copy of this, feel free to follow along. If you don't, you can order one. If you go to jerryfetta.com, I think you can still get this for free. You cover your shipping, which I think is $8, and then you can have the book shipped out to you. But we're going to talk about saving and investing. Okay. And as we're diving into this, like I want to give you my backstory on saving. I did not grow up in a family that saved money. Again, I did not grow up in a family that invested money. I grew up in a family on my dad's side because my parents were divorced. On my dad's side, we were savers from the standpoint that we were frugal, but we were frugal so we could have fun. Right. So we'd pinch and constrict and not have things and go without so that on the weekends we could have fun with money, or on the summer times we could go on trips. We could go fishing. We could, do things because we had the money saved up to do it. But after those events were done, we would be broke. Right. So that was on my dad's side. On my mom's side, she was a saver, but she was a giver too. So she'd save money so she could give it. And so we would still end up broke. And so this idea of saving for me was never a thing where I learned I save money so that I can invest the money so that I can build passive income so that later on, yes, I can have fun and give. But before that happens, I've got to build up my own solvency. Okay, solvency, the S word that nobody wants to talk about when it comes to wealth. So again, if you're tuning in, we are talking about money. I'm going to go ahead and just put my hat on. There we go. We are talking about money. We are talking about finances. And so if you're watching and you have questions, drop those in the comments where we're talking about saving and investing. Okay, saving and investing. So on this topic of saving, I want to actually start with something from my book. So we're on chapter 7 of my book, How to Create Wealth. And there's this thing called the 40% rule. Okay. And again, I didn't grow up as a saver. So the idea of saving was either we were going to save up and have fun, or we're going to save up and give the money away, and then we'd end up broke again. But this idea of I'm going to pay myself first was not a thing. So when I earned income, I wasn't pulling money off the top. Okay. I wasn't even really saving money after the fact. Like at the end of the month, I didn't have stuff left over that I saved. That's how most people save. I just didn't do anything at all. Okay. And so as I started to like decide I want to save money, I graduated into, okay, well, if I'm going to save money, then I need to have a budget. Okay. And I bypassed all the stuff we covered last week about, yeah, have a budget, but also earn more income. Right. So I was like, okay, well, I need to have a budget. And if I have a budget, then whatever's left over at the end of the month, I'm going to save. So it's actually saving by accident. Okay. Who's ever done that where you saved because there was money left over, not because you had the intention to save money. And so you actually pulled it off the top. Okay, that's a different thing. That's how we get taxed. That's how our 401ks happen. That's how our mortgages happen. They don't let us give them what's left. They save off the top, and then we're left to live life with whatever's left. So if we have that happening to us from the side of taxes and Wall Street and the banks, why are we not doing that to ourselves? That's what this whole 40% rule is about. Now, as an illustration, I want to go over this. I know I've shown this chart to you guys before, but this is what did it for me on this topic of saving 40%. Okay, so I'm going to show you a chart that breaks down why we save 40%, where this actually came from, because there's people that are like, hey, this came from, this influencer or that influencer, and it actually didn't. The 40% savings rule statistically is what the top 1% of wealth save. All right, let me see if I can pull this chart up for you guys. So as I'm waiting for this to load, what I saw here on this chart, and I'll show you guys here in a second, was that the top 1%ers, when they save their money, they don't save what's left over. They save off the top and they save 40%. And by saving 40%, they end up having this phenomenon that happens where when times are bad, they're putting money away. Okay, they're putting money away because, when times are good, they're putting money away. And so most people, when times are good, they're spending, right? Not the 1%ers. Let me see if I can find this chart. My computer is being interestingly slow on this graphic that I want to show you guys. Here we go. Saving rates. Here we go. Great. Perfect. Okay, let me go ahead and just share this so you guys can see the visual that I want to go over with you on there on the chart here. Bingo. So again, if you guys are on Instagram, you're probably not going to be able to see this just because Instagram does not give you the ability to watch Zoom. But if you're on Facebook, you will. So this chart that you guys are going to see here, this is the top 1% savings rates. Okay, savings rates by wealth class. So we see here savings rates from negative 10% all the way up to 50%. Okay, these are broken down into wealth classes. So you can see the top 1% of wealth. See what I mean? They're saving 40% of their income. They're saving 40% of their income. By saving 40% of their income, what they're doing is during times that are good, you can see in the early 1900s, the roaring 20s, they were saving quite a bit of their income. Great Depression happens, boom, they drop down. They go below zero. They start borrowing money, and then they start buying things because now when times are bad, things are on sale, they can go buy. Okay, 2020, guess what? The top 1% in 2020 added $1 trillion to their net worth this year. Okay, we can hate them, but at the end of the day, there's not a single person I know that would honestly say they didn't wish they could do the same. So instead of hating on them, let's look what they're doing. So they're saving 40% of their income. Depression is done. Boom, they're up to an all-time high. The 1950s, we have another recession. They go into reducing their savings and investing again. Recession's done, they're back up. into another recession, savings rate dips. Okay, then they peak out, tech bubble, they dip again, mortgage crisis, they stay down, then they peak back up. If you see 2020 happen, you would see that they dip again. Okay, now okay, we're back. You'll be able to see on Facebook my picture here. Sorry about that. If you guys are on Zoom, I think you guys got momentarily disconnected there. It must be our internet connection over here. Okay, so we just went over that chart though. So the chart is talking about how to save 40%, which is a steep gradient. Okay, it's a steep gradient to go from not saving or just saving what's left over at the end of the month, or just saving, the top 5 or top 10% of my income, to then actually saving 40%. So how do we get there? So I want to go through that. So in order to save 40%, the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to commit to a savings number. Okay, this is the mentality of, doing what you can do, knowing that you're going to make progress. So for me, when I was like, how do I get to 40%? I had to get out of the mindset that since I can't do it, I'll do nothing at all. Because that was my mindset. I was like, well, I can't save 40, so I'm just not going to do anything. When really, that's not how life works. It's like saying, if I can't, let's say I plan on going to the gym for an hour and I can't stay for an hour, would I just not work out at all? No, I would go and I would do 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever I could do. Right. So doing nothing is not a replacement for the fact that I can't get to the full number I want to get. So it starts with committing to a number. Okay. So whether that be 5% or whether that be 10%, I want you to realize most Americans do save probably less than 5% of their income. So this is not a game of comparisons, but if it were one, you don't have a very high bar to go for. It's not like everyone is saving and you're not. And because of that, you're behind the 8 ball. Like if you commit to a number, you're better off than most people. Okay. So I would commit to a number. So look at what could I do off the top of my income? If I make $5,000 a month, if I save, 10% of that, that's $500. If I save 5% of it, that's $250. Isn't $250 better than $0? It is. And so I would start with 250. That's what I had to do. And then I'd incrementally increase my income and reduce my expenses until I could save more money. Right. So that's the first thing that we do to getting there. And again, the goal is 40, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be there right away. That's a top 1% number. So a lot of people, again, will look at this and just say, well, I'm going to do nothing. Okay. Don says 70% of my annual income goes into sacred accounts. That's awesome, Don. I'd love to hear that. So commit to a savings number. The next thing that you're going to do, and this is assuming that you already did what we talked about last week, because last week we talked about increase your income, become more valuable to people, exchange more frequently, right? So if I'm already doing that, increasing my income, then I, commit to a number. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to economize. I'm going to cut down my fixed expenses. Okay. Now it's very important. It's very important that you don't cut the expenses first. Okay. Because what happens is, let's say that I'm making $5,000 a month. Facebook live feed went down. Let me make sure I think we're back up on Facebook. Thanks for letting me know. I think we're back up and running on Facebook though. Let me refresh it. So, what we're looking at is, if you try and cut your expenses first, what's going to happen is you're actually going to shrink. Okay. You go into scarcity mode. I did this when I first started trying to get good at money. I thought, well, I need a budget and not spend and be really cheap and be really frugal. And sure, there's a time and a place for that. And I'm not saying spend all this money and not save anything, but I'm saying if I go first into the mindset of shrink, it's really hard to come out of that. Anyone that's done that, anyone that's done the Dave Ramsey plan or the Clark Howard plan or the latte effect, where you're just like, don't spend extra money on anything, that can become an addiction. That's an addicting mindset. You start going into this mode of spreadsheet and budget and trying to save $3 here and $2 there, which it feels great because you can do it. But at the end of the month, you save $5. You're not going to become wealthy with $5. So when you flip it and I say, hey, I want to save 40%, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to force my income up. Then I can actually make progress because I can make more money by earning than I can save by not spending. Okay. And if I earn more exponentially, my best case scenario is I become wealthy. If I try and budget exponentially, my best case scenario is I become homeless. Okay. I can budget all the way down to homeless. In fact, I've done it. Okay. I've budgeted all the way down to homeless before. I didn't have a house. I didn't have rent. I thought it was awesome. Okay. Until I realized I was homeless and then it wasn't awesome anymore. So I want to stress here as we cut expenses, make sure you've increased the income first. Okay. We talked about that last week. Now, areas that you can go over, we want to address our debt. So if I'm trying to save more money, get this, if I'm trying to save more money, I have to realize like my debt, I'm going to handle that, but there's actually a methodology for it. The root cause of having debt is lack of money. So this idea of like, well, I need to save, but I need to pay off my debt and I don't know which one to do. And it becomes this mental battle of, I don't know which direction to go in. So I'm not really going to do either of them. Realize if I have debt, it meant that I sucked at saving before I had debt. Therefore, when it came time to pay for something, I had no savings and I had to borrow money. So if I don't solve that problem of having no money before I handle my debt, then I'm never going to break the cycle of having debt. This is so critical. Paying off debt does not get rid of debt. Okay, it might pay down your balances, but if I, again, don't change the cycle by having money, so next time I don't have to borrow, then I will end up back in debt. So when I'm looking at increasing my savings rate, the first thing I'm actually going to do is if I'm paying extra money on my debts, I'm going to lower all of them down to the minimum payments. Okay, don't worry about the interest. We're going to handle that next, right? But right now, I'm looking for margin. How do I free up budget money? How do I free up cash flow in my budget? So if I'm broke and I don't have savings, Bank of America doesn't need an extra $100 this month. My mortgage doesn't need an extra payment this year. My car payment doesn't need to be paid off early because the result of that is me getting rid of income and giving it to institutions, and then I don't have any. So I'm going to reduce my payments down to the minimums. Now I've got free cash flow. Super counterintuitive. Anyone else is going to tell you, snowball your debt, this old Dave Ramsey plan. But at the end of the day, I can't do that and still be solvent. I'm going to end up back in debt. I've tried that. You get halfway through, something breaks on the car, whatever goes wrong, and I end up back in debt. Right? So I'm going to reduce my debts down to the minimum payment. Any money that I freed up from doing so, I'm going to put that towards saving. The next thing I'm going after is my insurance costs. Okay. So I'm going to shop things like health insurance. If I don't go to the doctor very much, I can have a high deductible health plan. I can have a lower premium. I can try and pay annually. Same thing with my car insurance. If I don't ever get in car wrecks, which I really didn't, I was a pizza driver and I really never got in car wrecks. I didn't need my insurance that often. I'm going to raise my deductible up. I'm going to shop for a cheaper carrier. I'm going to switch to an annual payment frequency. These are all things that are going to reduce my fixed expenses. Okay, same thing with taxes. If I'm having taxes withheld from my paycheck and I'm getting a refund at the end of the year, that means that the IRS is taking my money, holding it for the entire year, paying me 0 interest, and then giving it back to me at the end. That's not a good deal. So if that's me, then I'm actually going to adjust my taxes so that there's less being taken out of my paycheck and I've got more money back again. And then the final thing we're going to reduce is we're going to reduce our investments. Similar to the debt, if I am not saving 40% of my income, then Wall Street does not need my money. So I'm going to halt the 401k. I'm going to halt the Roth IRA. I'm going to halt the traditional IRA. All of those things that take money out of my pocket and put it in the pocket of an institution that's either going to keep it like my debt, or they're going to hold it past the point I need to use it, like Wall Street, where they're going to keep my money till I'm 60. I'm going to stop all that stuff. Okay. Just by doing those 4 things, you should be able to find anywhere from $300 to $500 up to $1,500 or more per month in your budget. Okay. So these are all things that I would recommend on how do I increase that savings rate. Okay, now that we've done that, again, we've done some economizing. The next thing we're going to go after is we're going to look at where do we save the money? Okay, where do we save the money? For me, part of why I didn't save is because I was never motivated to. Okay, because I thought I had a misconception of saving. And this is hilarious to me because so many of us have this. I'm going to whiteboard this out. So if you're like me, no offense, if you're like me, I grew up broke. Again, I did not have money saved. I wasn't investing. I was doing none of those things. But I had all of these ideas about how money worked. And I thought I was right. I was like, well, this must be how this works and this must be how that works. But I wasn't looking at my own stats and my own track record, right? So when I was saving, I thought saving meant that I take money and I put it somewhere. Okay? And that's saving, right? And that was my whole idea of the entire process of saving money. So questions, we will answer questions at the end of this, but I was putting my money in a bank, right? And I would leave it there until I was ready to spend it. That was what I thought saving was. Okay. Wealthy people don't think about saving that way. They think about it like this. So this is me. This was my method. Okay. Then we're going to look at the 1% method. Okay. So they look at, I'm going to save money. Sure. It's going to go somewhere. Okay. It might be, a bank, or it might be a trust, or it might be a life insurance policy. But they look at also, the money doesn't just go in, the money also comes out. So what happens to it when it comes out? Okay, if you're watching this right now, and I'm going to explain it, but this might be going over your head because it did for me. I thought I put money in a bank, it sits there, and then when I'm ready to spend it, I spend it, and that's that. Okay, the 1% don't think that way. They look at, if I put money here in this account, when I take it out, I still want it to grow. Like it never left. I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay, so I was putting my money in the bank and I was making, 0.05% on those dollars. And then when I took those dollars out of the bank, I was making nothing because now they were no longer there because I spent them. Okay, versus a 1%er, this is really how they do it. They put their money in this account, whatever it might be. It's usually not going to actually be just a bank account. And they're going to withdraw that money out, but they're still earning interest on the money while they withdraw it. Okay. If you study, a good company to look at for this is Apple. Okay. I want to draw this out because this is the concept of the sacred account. Everyone knows Apple, right? So we have Apple. Let's draw the little Apple logo, right? So we have Apple. And as we know it, we just know of Apple Store, and you get your iPhone there. Did you know that the United States Apple stores are actually franchises? Okay. Every single Apple location that you've ever seen in the United States of America is a franchise. Most people don't know this. Okay. Their headquarters is actually in Ireland. Okay. Why is their headquarters in Ireland? Because Ireland has a deal where they pay zero taxes. So if Apple has an offshore franchise in Ireland, the franchisor, and it owns all of these franchise locations in various countries across the world, what that means is these franchises, when they produce revenue, have to pay the revenue to the franchisor in Ireland. Sorry, not Iceland, in Ireland. Okay. The Ireland corporation collects all the income from Apple. All these locations pay royalties and franchise fees. And then the Ireland corporation collects the income and pays no taxes on it. Okay. If you Google Apple, I forget the number, but it's like hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars that they have just in cash in Ireland. And they don't ever withdraw it because if they withdraw it, they pay taxes on it. So instead, what they will do is they will take loans against their cash. Why would they take loans against their cash? Because they don't want to pay taxes. If they take cash out of Ireland and bring it to the United States of America or any country, they're going to pay taxes on it. But not if it's a loan, because the IRS and all these different, treasury and collection agencies for all these countries, they can't tax a loan. So Apple can take their cash, they can invest it, they can hold it, they can put it wherever they want to put it in their business. But at the end of the day, when they want money out of it, they borrow against what they have instead of withdrawing what they have. And I use this to give you a real life example because, again, I said I personally used to just take my money and I would put it in the bank, right? And then I would withdraw it when I was ready to, and that was that. Okay. Versus the 1%ers, they put their money in a sacred account and then they borrow against it so that they're still earning interest on this money and they're also not paying taxes on this money. See, with a bank, I don't have to worry about taxes because I'm making 0.05%. So there's freaking, I'll pay taxes, but it's like, I'll pay 10% on $5, right? And with a bank, I'm not used to making money. So I don't feel it when I realize, oh, if I pull the money out and I don't make anything, it's actually a loss. We're programmed to think this way because the bank makes a lot of money on our money. Okay. So part of this is increasing the income is putting the money somewhere that's exciting to place it. If I'm excited about where I'm putting my money, then I'm going to want to put more there. If I'm not excited about saving and where I'm saving and what happens when I save it and how it works, then I'm going to have no incentive to save. Like, yeah, I have income and I put it in a bank account and then I make 0.05% interest while it's there. And when I take it out, I make nothing. That's not exciting. It's exciting for the bank because they're going to loan it out 10 times on my dollar. For every $1 I give them, they can loan that dollar out to 10 people or more. And that's my mortgage payment and my car loan and my credit card. The bank they have a very exciting plan with my money. I don't. So what I do instead is I put my money in sacred accounts. Okay. So the sacred account is going to be a life insurance policy. Okay. It's a dividend paying life insurance policy. And so what happens with this account is when I put money into it, my money earns a 3 to 5% annual growth rate. Okay. And that's tax free. Let me go ahead and put that there. Tax free. Right. So I'm kind of doing what Apple is doing in Ireland. I've got my money growing and I'm paying no taxes on it. Okay. Instead of withdrawing money, I'm going to borrow it. Okay. So I'm going to take loans against my account. I can loan 70 to 90% against my account. So if I've got $1,000, I can borrow 700 to 900 bucks. Okay. It's going to cost me 1 to 3% interest when I borrow. And then I can use that money for whatever I want. Right. But check this out. Just like Apple, my money is still earning and I'm not paying taxes on it. In fact, my money is earning at a rate greater than what it costs me to borrow. If it costs me 1 to 3, but I simultaneously make 3 to 5, do the math on that. What's 3 minus 1? 2%, right? Worst case scenario, let's say that it's 3 minus 2. I still make a 1% rate. Worst case scenario, let's say that I make 3 and it costs me 3. I made 0, but I pay no taxes. So I would rather make 0 and pay no taxes and have that money still there than borrow again, or than pull money out of a bank, pay taxes on it and have nothing there to show for my work. Right. So this is the entire play with how we work this. Now, these are called sacred accounts. You can do this with life insurance. You can do this with gold and silver. You can do this with real estate, but it's again, knowing about this system. This is not a system I was ever taught about. Okay. I was taught, give my money to the bank. I was taught save in a piggy bank. Even the thing that we were putting our money in as kids is a piggy bank. Right? Do you see the early marketing and propaganda? Do you know that banks, they put the majority of their reserves in life insurance? So I'm giving it to the bank. And then what is the bank doing They're doing with it? They're buying life insurance. So why don't I just bypass them and put it in life insurance myself? The life insurance, by the way, has been around longer than your bank. I don't care who you bank with. For example, if I'm with a life insurance company like the ones we're talking about, they've been around since the early to mid 1800s. Most banks have not. Right. So guys, and this is again, all in my book, How to Create Wealth. Right. So we're talking about structuring a life insurance policy and putting the money there so that I have somewhere exciting to place it. So step 1, we talked about increase the income. Step 2, we talked about commit to a number. Okay. Step 3, we talked about reduce expenses. And then step 4, we talked about establish an account that's actually exciting to put the money into. Okay, those would be the 4 steps of me increasing my income. Now that provides positive incentive. I'm not saving for a rainy day. I'm not saving for any of that stuff. I'm saving for building wealth. Okay. Now I want to kind of talk about like the purpose and what we're going to do with the savings. So there's different levels of this, right? And so when I'm saving money, I need to understand what my goals are. Why am I saving? Okay. So if we have, let's say I'm starting out here at the top. Here I might have debt, right? And so if I have debt, most Americans do. It's a topic nobody wants to talk about, by the way. None of the influencers want to talk to you about how to pay off your debt because it's not sexy, but everyone has debt. Almost everyone I know has some kind of debt and there's no plan out there for them to handle it, right? So if I have debt, I'm actually going to use my savings to pay off my debt. So that's the first thing. That's the first purpose of saving, is to help pay off my debt. Okay, so if I start borrowing against this account, like I talked about, my money's growing at 3 to 5%. It costs me 2 to 3% to borrow. My debt might cost me 5 or 10 or 15% interest. I can borrow against my account. I can pay off my debt. And then I can free up whatever I used to pay towards that debt and use that to then go build wealth with instead. In effect, I'm buying my debts back from the bank. The bank used to make interest on it. They no longer do. Now I do, right? Now, once I've paid off my debt, my next step is to have reserves. Okay. It's not to invest yet. Okay. It's to have reserves. Again, something that most people won't talk about. They want to talk to you about real estate and cryptocurrency and stocks and bonds and options trading and Forex and gold and silver. Guys, if I don't have reserves, then I end up back at step 0 of having debt. Because if I don't have something to fall back on, 2020 was a great example. So the goal here is I want to have 6 months saved. 6 months saved. Now, again, it's where am I saving it? 6 months in the bank is very boring. Okay, because I'm making nothing on that money. 6 months in a sacred account is not boring because I know that I'm actually building wealth with that account. I'm growing at 3 to 5% tax-free. I can still use it whenever I need to, but it actually gives me a reason to save the money there, right? So I'm getting 6 months in reserve. So I would count up, and at this point, I've got no debt left. So I've paid off all my debt. I've got, let's say, $3,000 or $4,000 a month in income. Let's say it's 3 times 6 is 18. So my goal would be to have 18 grand in my sacred account before I do any investing. Okay. So those are my reserves. This is the part that most people try and skip. Okay. And the reason they try and skip that is they're impatient. It goes back to what I said, but when I was broke coming up, I thought I knew everything about money, even though I had none of it. So I was like, reserve 6 months. That sounds like a long time. I'm going to try and shortcut that. I'm going to try and bypass it. I'm going to try and skip it because I want to invest and get there sooner. Okay. Wealthy people have reserves. I'm here to tell you they have lots of money in reserves. Grant Cardone has reserves. Robert Kiyosaki has reserves. Banks have reserves. Governments have reserves. So for me to say I'm going to skip solvency so that I can invest in a real estate deal quicker, like that's not going to help me. So I need to build the reserves up first. So that's maybe 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or $50,000, depending on how much I'm spending per month. And I need to be willing to get there. Now, once I've done that, the next thing that I'm saving for is actually going to be to self-finance my own vehicle. Okay, I had a client ask me about this today. I actually helped 2 clients do this today. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, like most people, they're going to buy a car either with cash or they're going to finance it, right? Who's ever financed a vehicle? You've borrowed money from a bank to pay for a car. Okay, I've done that like dozens of times. Okay, anyone paid cash for one before? You just walked up with cash, you bought it, and then you had no payments. Okay, so I want to show you how this works. So on step number 2, the reason we're saving is to finance our own vehicle. This is if you need a car. Okay, if you don't need a car, go ahead and skip this, but most of us need a car, right? So let's say that we're going to buy a car. We can finance it, right? Let's say I'm going to buy a $20,000 vehicle at a 5% interest rate. And my payments is going to be, let's say, $400 a month. Okay. And let's pretend this is a 5-year term, even though it's probably more like a 7 or an 8-year term, because most people are broke and borrow money for too long of a term length on a car. But let's say I do this. At the end of 5 years, what do I have? I have a paid off car that's worth half what I bought it for. And I spent more than the 20 grand it cost because the interest. That's how most people buy a car, right? The other thing is cash. So I can pay with cash. I can just go take $20,000 and I can buy a vehicle with it, right? And at the end of this 5 years, I'll have no payments because I never had to, pay interest or make a car payment. But again, that car is worth half. I've effectively turned $20,000 into $10,000 over 5 years. So again, another terrible way to buy a car. Most people do it one of those 2 ways. So at this stage of the game, if you have a sacred account, what you're doing instead is you're going to take your $20,000 in your sacred account because you've been saving and it's growing at 3 to 5%, right? You're going to borrow against it and you're going to buy the car with cash, right? So you've bought your vehicle, whatever car that might be. And then you're going to take that payment that you would have made to the bank and you're going to pay it to yourself instead. That $400 a month, you're going to pay here. Okay. At the end of 5 years, you have more than $20,000 because your 20 grand has been growing at 3 to 5%. Right? You also paid yourself $400 a month instead of the bank, and then you still have the resale value on the vehicle of $10,000. This is how you take something like a car and turn it into an investment. Okay. It might just look like numbers, but I'm telling you, imagine if you were driving a car and it made you money every single year and you paid yourself a payment instead of the bank. And at the end of 5 years, you more than doubled your money. I sat down with a client today. He's going to buy an Audi, okay, an SUV. It's an Audi. He'll buy it probably for $70,000. We're going to take something called a Section 179 tax deduction, which means that he can write off the entire purchase price of his Audi. So he's going to also save about $15,000 in taxes by buying his Audi. But at the end of the 5 years, guess what his rate of return was per year on the car? 14.5% is what he will make by buying his own car with life insurance, self-financing it. Okay, people are so excited about getting into a real estate deal. Find one real estate deal that you can get into that takes you none of your time, none of your effort. You don't have to find the deal. You don't have to manage the tenants or the toilets or any of this stuff. And it will make you 14.5% guaranteed. It doesn't exist. Like even finding a deal you can do with 20 grand that makes you anything doesn't really exist. If you're going to do a deal, it takes like $50,000. So this rush of like, man, I have to get in and buy, my first property and invest in this and invest in that. No. Do this first. Okay. Pay off your debt, get your reserves, and then self-finance your vehicle. That's your first move. Okay. You're going to make a 14.5% return on your investment by doing that over a 5-year period. That's better than the real estate deal. Okay, that's better than buying a duplex and living in one unit and renting out the other one. This also takes you no work. You don't have to manage a car. That your car just makes you money because of the way that you structured the financing. Okay, you don't have to provide customer service or fix things. Like this is stuff that anybody can do. But again, it comes down to, do I know how to do it? So that's the second thing you're going to do. You've paid off your debt. You've got your reserves. You're going to buy your car. You can also buy your house this way. Okay. So you're going to live somewhere. You're either going to rent or you're going to own, right? So what if you decided that you were going to take your down payment out of your sacred account and you were going to self-finance your house? So you took, let's say $100,000 out of your sacred account and you bought a $400,000 house. And the entire time, this 100 grand is still growing at 3 to 5%. Right. And so at the end of this, you've actually got money that you can use, not just a paid off house, which most people don't even pay the house off. Like there's so many little things. Like this is what I want to stress on this tonight. When we talk about saving money, like the best way to do it is look at, where am I giving money to? Yeah, let's increase the income. But all of these banks and institutions like Wall Street, we just covered, don't put money in the 401k, put it in the sacred account instead. We can plainly see why. We just talked about don't finance a car, self-finance it. We can plainly see why. We're now talking about don't do a regular mortgage and buy your house on a freaking FHA 3% loan. We can clearly see why. Okay. But you have to also look at, there's on the flip side of that transaction, on the Wall Street side, on the putting money in an IRA or 401k, they're in that business for a reason. It makes them a lot of money, which means if it makes them a lot of money, it costs you a lot of money. Okay. There's a reason why banks are in the business of extending car loans, because it makes them a lot of money, which means it costs you a lot of money. There's a reason why banks want you to borrow money on a mortgage, because it makes them a lot of money, which means it costs you a lot of money. So quit doing business with them and start doing business with yourself instead, which, by the way, you can't do in a freaking bank account. We're saying avoid the bank on the mortgage, which means don't give it to them in a savings account instead. The idea is get out of the bank, right? So all of this to say, like, those are reasons why I would want to save. But if it's just like save for a rainy day or save so that when an accident inevitably does happen in your life, it's not as bad as it would have been, like, no, have some goals. Have the excitement of I'm financing my car and making money on it. Have the excitement of I'm buying my property with my sacred account that I saved my money into, and I'm actually making money on it. Okay. So we do all of those things. We do the car, we do the house, all of that. Once we've done that, then we start investing for passive income. We start investing at this point for passive income. Now, to invest for passive income, you need at least $50,000. Okay, $50,000, which means, and a lot of us will look at that number and we'll say, that's impossible. That's a lot of money. Well, think about if you didn't have debt, okay, and you've reduced your taxes and you don't have a car payment and your mortgage payment is either very little or non-existent because of the way you self-financed all this stuff. You'd have tons of money left over. Because right now, most of us can't save 40% of our income because more than that goes to financial institutions between Wall Street and banks and credit cards and student loans and everything else that we pay for in life. Okay. So I want to dive into when to invest. So here are the things that I want to kind of get into on this topic, because next week we'll talk more about specifically investing, but reasons why I think you should wait till you have 50,000, because there's this school of thought of like invest early and put something away every month and use your time horizon and dollar cost average into your mutual funds. Terrible advice. And I used to be a financial advisor, right? So one of the reasons why I don't believe in that is somebody that's doing that doesn't really understand what they're investing in. Okay. Who here has a 401k or an IRA or stocks or bonds or mutual funds? Let's see in the comments. Okay. We have some hands raised. Okay. So let me show you how this works. If I own a mutual fund, we're going to abbreviate it as MF for good reason. Okay. But you have a mutual fund. You have inside of that fund, you're going to have different market sectors. Okay. So it might be, international, or it might be growth, or it might be growth in income. Inside of those sectors, you're going to have something called a market capitalization. Is it small cap, large cap, mid cap, different types of strategies. Inside of that, you're going to have industries, right? And then inside of that, you're going to have actual holdings. Like, what actual stocks do I own? So if I'm taking $50 a month, or I'm taking $100 a month and I'm putting that into a 401k, do I actually know what's in there? Okay. Now inside of the holdings, there's companies. Those companies have balance sheets. They have financial statements. They have profit ratios. They invest their money places. So if I don't have any of that information, can I really say I understand what I'm investing in? Okay. My number one rule of investing is don't invest in what I don't understand. So if I have a mutual fund, that mutual fund is one fund. Okay. The average stock portfolio might have 5 or 10 mutual funds. Each mutual fund might have 15 to 20 companies in it. Okay. So you do the math on that. That's 100 shares of stock with 100 different companies that I know nothing about. Like, imagine me just giving you 100 properties for you to manage tomorrow. Yeah, it's cool because you own properties, but if it's like 100, you're going to be spread thin. You won't know what the hell you're looking at. Okay. So I would argue for somebody that starts early, they don't actually know what they're investing in. Now, here's the thing. We call this diversification. If we diversify, we spread out the risk. Bullshit. Okay. Diversification actually increases the risk. If I don't know anything about these companies, I own 100 of them. That's more risky. Okay. Like, imagine having 100 baskets and each of them has like a live, thing of dynamite in it. You don't know which one's going to go off first because they can all go down and drop at any time. That's risky. Versus if I have one basket, I can look in there and I can take care of it and like do what I need to do with that basket. Right. But here's the problem. Nobody thinks about that, because if I'm putting, $100 in my 401k, that's not enough money for me to care about. That's not if I lose $100, no one cares. I can go make $100 easy. Now, if it's 50, check this out. If I save and I work and I earn and I do all the hard work to get $50,000 saved, this is so simple, but again, like, it gets so overlooked. At 50,000, am I going to be more cautious with my investment? Yes, I am, because I remember how long it took me to get $50,000 stacked up. So I'm going to make better decisions. Okay. Am I going to vet the deal better? Yes. Am I going to be more skeptical when somebody pitches me an idea to put that money into? Yes. All of those answers are yes, because, it's enough money for me to care about. Okay. At $100 a month in my 401k, it's not. Okay. The other thing is, with this 50 in my sacred account, I can actually use that money now. So if I lose it because I put it in a bad investment, I actually lost it. If it's a 401k, I couldn't touch that money till I was 60 anyway. So if I lose it, I didn't really lose it, because I wasn't going to use it till I was 60, and I can't have that money in the first place. Okay. So those are a couple of the reasons why I would say wait till you get to 50,000. And then mathematically speaking, like 50,000, if we're investing for passive income, we're probably doing real estate. If you understand real estate, you understand you're not going to find a unit for less than 50 grand. That's why that's the minimum. A lot of the funds won't take less than that. Okay. Now, the other fact too is, if somebody is investing sooner and they're trying to take little amounts of money and put it away, they haven't built up discipline yet. Okay. Saving 50 grand takes discipline. Paying off all my debt takes discipline. Building up 6 months of reserves takes discipline. Saving another 20 grand to self-finance my car takes discipline. Saving enough money to self-finance my down payment on my house takes discipline. So all of those things add up to, I'm a very disciplined person by the time I make my first investment. Okay. I can name, on the top of my head, dozens of people that I know in my life that they did their first deal without discipline. Guess what? They take their passive income and they spend it. So if I get this 50 grand and I invest it and I make $500 a month and I have no discipline, then I'm never going to keep that $500 a month because I've got no discipline, because I haven't practiced the idea of putting large amounts of money away over time. So when I get some more, I'm going to spend it because that's what I do with all of my money. Okay. So that's basically what this comes down to, is we're building up discipline over time. And then the other factor on this too is like, just if you do math on rates of return, if you do math on rates of return here, if I take $100 and I make 12% on $100, 12% is a good return. We can all agree, right? Guys, that's $12. $12 did not change my life. Not one bit. Okay. Let's up the stakes. Okay. Let's say that I took $1,000, right? That's $120, right? At 12%, $120. I'm still not going to get that much money. Okay. Let's up the stakes even more. Let's turn this into $10,000, because a lot of us, $10,000 does sound a lot. Guys, that is $1,200. You get $1,200 from your government just for free. Right? So at $1,200, like, that's not enough money to actually make a meaningful impact. Right? Now, if I take $50,000, which is the example we're talking about tonight, and I invest that at 12%, right? That's going to be a whole different ballgame. Okay. If I take $50,000 and I invest that at 12%, let me go ahead and erase my whiteboard here. That's not the erase button. Here we go. If I invest that at 12%, I'm actually going to make $500 a month on that money. Okay. So $500 a month, that's actually enough for this to help. Okay. I put an extra zero there, $500 a month. That's actually enough for this to help. This is like $500 a month. That if I'm making $5 grand, that's 10% of my income. Okay. If I'm saving an extra $500 a month in addition to what I was already saving, because I have no debt and I have financed my own car and I have financed my own house and all this other stuff is freed up, that actually gives me a compounding effect on what I was saving already. Okay. So this is how we get there. And it does take discipline. For those of us watching that are like, well, that sounds like it takes too long. And like, you have to have the way to the ability to stick this out and actually get there. Wealthy people didn't just appear with money bags. Okay, a lot of our current day millionaires, I think the stat is over 80% of them are first generation, which means they're self-made. I am too. Okay, so if I'm a self-made generation of millionaires, it means I started with zero. And it means that I worked, and it means I had discipline, and it means that I saved money. I didn't just show up with money on the scene and by osmosis start creating it. Right? Now, the other thing I want to hit, for those that are looking for get rich quick, let me buy a Bitcoin, or let me flip a house with $5 grand, or let me put $100 in my 401k. I want you to realize, when you're investing that small amount of money into an asset at that tiny little size, like we discussed, you're actually invalidating yourself as your own best investment at that point. If I'm in a position in my life, and this is going to sting, but if I'm in a position in my life where I've only got $5 grand and that sounds like a lot of money, it means that I don't have very high knowledge, I don't have very high value, and I'm not exchanging with people very often. Which means I need to invest in me. I don't need to be giving the money to Wall Street. I need to go learn. I need to go skill up. I need to go get more value from myself by learning, so that I can earn more, so that I can save more, so that I don't think $5 grand is a lot of money. If I'm looking at 50,000 and I'm like, that's not real. And the reason I can point this out is because I was there. Okay. This year, I'll clear, I've already cleared easily double seven figures, but that was, just like clockwork. But my very first year in business, I didn't think that I could make 50 grand. In my own business, I was like, man, I don't know if I can make 50,000. So at that stage in the game for me to take my money and give it to Wall Street, or to buy a real estate property, or to try and get into a duplex where I live in a unit, rent one for free or live in one for free and rent one out, I would have never made it to the level that I'm at with my income, because the entire time I was putting my money into an asset other than myself. Whereas as I started growing and getting more knowledge and improving, I could earn more, which meant I could save more, which meant that I could invest more. All of this comes back to the triangle of wealth. Okay. Earn, save, invest. Those are 3 irrefutable points of wealth building. Okay. Now there's another triangle that I want to hit as we wrap up, and I'm going to start answering some questions here. Okay. This is the triangle of financial behavior. Okay. Financial behavior. Money is a representation of our own behavior, right? So our behavior is here in the middle, right? It is the triangle. This is based on what we think, what we feel, and what we do. Okay. So if I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, I think $50,000 is too much money, or I think it takes too long to do all this stuff, or I think that I want to skip this step and go to the next one. My thinking is going to cause me to feel a certain way, which is going to cause me to do certain things. And this is not even theoretical, guys. This is chemical. My brain, when I think things, uses something in my body through my glands and all the chemicals that get produced. It's called my endocrine system. It releases chemicals into my bloodstream that make me involuntarily behave. It is not up to me. It is up to the chemicals released in my bloodstream. So when I think things, that causes emotions, which are based on chemical reactions, which then cause me to act in a certain way, and I have no control over the action. Once I've thought the thought and felt the feeling, it's game over. Okay. Guess what I think is based on? It's based on my knowledge. So if I don't know very much about money, then I'm going to think not very good things about it. I'm going to think not very intelligent things about it. I'm going to feel not very good ways about it. And then I'm going to do not very good things with my money. And then I'm going to look at my results in my life and say, this sucks. I knew I was right. Everything is, stacked against me. Life's so hard. Money's so difficult. And then I'm going to keep thinking the same things to reinforce my own behavior, because I can't be wrong, because the human mind doesn't like to be wrong. And then it just continues going until I'm 60 broke and everyone's wrong. I know that's an intense way to think about it, but guys, that really literally is scientifically what's happening. So if I never take the time in my life to increase and improve my financial knowledge, okay, which is based on my results over here, it's based on my results, and my results are the direct byproduct of what I do. Therefore, if I don't have results, then I'm doing the wrong things with money, which means I feel the wrong things with emotions, which means I think the wrong things about money because I lack the knowledge. Therefore, I could connect results and knowledge. If I don't have results, there's something I don't know. And I can have opinions and I can have strong feelings and all this stuff about money. But at the end of the day, if I don't have results with my finances, I have to be, I'm not even gonna say humble. I have to be brave enough and care enough and ethical enough about myself and my life and my legacy to realize I don't know stuff about money. I need to get knowledge so I can change my thinking and fix this. Okay. Because this entire book is full of information about money. This entire podcast, this entire webinar is full of information about money. Okay. Some of you guys are going to realize this is knowledge. I can change how I think. And then that cycle on that triangle is going to be different. Some of you guys are going to use me as a reason to disagree and further validate your own wrong decisions in order to make your results right when they're actually wrong. Okay. And the killer, the trick on this is money doesn't care either way. Money is not emotional. Money doesn't think or feel. It doesn't care what your skin color is, what your gender is, what you do for a living, what your backstory is, how hard your life was. Money is an accounting system. So if I think and feel the wrong things about money and do the wrong things with the money, money will slap me upside the head and be emotionless about it. Okay. And it doesn't matter what kind of person I am. I can be a terrible person and think, feel, and do the right things about money, and money is going to reward me. Okay. But it's up to you and I. That's what this comes down to. So the fundamentals of saving and investing really come down to like all of the stuff we covered tonight, but it boils down to, what is your behavior like? Okay. And based on your behavior, what are your feelings about money? And based on your feelings about money, what do you think? And based on what you think, that's going to tell me what your knowledge level is. And if I don't know about it, then I've got to invest the time and the money and the effort in order to know about it, which is again, why I have to save. I can't make those investments if I've got no money in the first place. Right. And college isn't going to teach it to you. School is not going to teach it to you. Your church isn't going to teach it to you. You've got to figure that out for yourself. Okay. So I'm going to open this up for questions. I will hit Instagram first and answer some questions here tonight. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. We always answer them at the end. I'm happy to. Good to see everybody tonight. Let's see here. What do we have for questions? Instagram is usually not got a ton of good questions. but I still give you guys a shot. I appreciate everyone watching on a Friday. Good to see everyone. Good to see everyone. Okay, here's a question. Does the money go directly into the sacred account from your employer pre-tax? So if you work for an employer that will allow you to do that, sometimes it can, but typically what happens is the money is going to get paid to you from your employer, and then you'll have an auto draft set up from your sacred account. So to just pull out of your bank account. So you'll just pull it from your saving, your checking account, rather than directly from your employer. But I would do it like the day I get paid. Right. So if I get paid on the 1st, then I'm going to set up with my sacred account. Hey, pull money out on the 1st so that it comes right off the top. Let's see here. Any other questions? Instagram is ridiculous sometimes. I'm 16. How do I get money? Work. Okay. Work is going to get you money. You just answered all the questions I didn't ask. Awesome. Let's see. Any other Instagram questions? Someone says you can take money out of your 401k whenever you want. That is not true. Whoever says that probably does not have a 401k. How do you get out of a situation when you can't work due to an injury? So that's a good one. So we don't have time to cover all that tonight, but I would do what you can do. I know that sounds simple, but an injury doesn't mean you're incapacitated, and unless you're literally incapacitated. But if I have just a work injury and I can't do my normal job, then I need to go find another job. Again, it's one of those things like money is an accounting system. So it doesn't care that I'm injured and that I can't work. I either have income or I don't. So if I'm injured, I have to realize I have to go produce income. That's my number one rule, is I have to go produce income. So if I hurt my back because I work in a warehouse and I can't lift stuff, I better get hustle and find out what else can I do. Let's see here. How much can you take out of your sacred account? So the sacred account, Joel, you can borrow against 70 to 90% of what's in there. And that's like when you're starting it out. As you progress the account, you can borrow 100% of what's in there, including all your growth too. Someone says you can take money out of your 41K. It's 401K, not 41K. Whenever, because my parents just did. That's called a CARES Act loan. That's because in 2020, if you got affected by COVID-19, you could pull money out of your 401k. It's due back. So it's not something you can do whenever. And that deal stops on December 31st. And I was right. This person doesn't actually have a 401k. All right. That's all we have on Instagram. We're going to go ahead and wrap them up. And let's go ahead and hit Facebook. You guys should see some of my Instagram comments. It's ridiculous, man. Okay, so let's see what we have on Facebook. Steve, good to see you. Kevin, good to see you. Nano, good to see you. Sean, good to see you. I don't see any questions here on Facebook. Let's check out Zoom. Okay, should I reduce and economize my business expenses when you talk about reducing investments? That's a good question. So with business expenses, that's an area that people get a little bit overexcited and carried away with. What I mean is people will spend money they wouldn't otherwise spend because of business. They'll be like, oh, I have the business will cover it. I've been in a business that had lots of expenses and very thin margins, and that was not a business I enjoyed, right? So when I got rid of the expenses and increased the income, it became a business I enjoyed. So I wouldn't spend money if you don't need it. With a business, it's all about return on investment. So if I can't see a direct investment, I'm not going to put money into it. And I'm probably the most frugal business owner out there in that stance. But I also earn a lot of income with the business. So it takes both of those things. Kevin says, Does the 3 to 5% growth work for life insurance sacred accounts for Canada? We can set them up in Canada. Yes, we can. And then before I invest in real estate, you want me to pay out all of my debt first? Yeah, so that's a good question. So I would pay off all the debt first. And again, the reason being is if I invest in real estate and I'm going to make, let's say, a 12% return, I take, 10 grand and I put that into a real estate deal and make 12%. I'm going to make $100 a month on that, right? 12% on 10 grand. Okay, if I take 10 grand worth of credit cards and pay those off, I'm going to make more than $100 a month on what I've saved in credit card payments. So I definitely would. In the credit card or the debt, whatever kind of debt it is guaranteed. Like if I pay it off, it's guaranteed to pay me because I don't have to put that towards my debt any longer. Let's see here. Good to see everybody. Dawn says the new book is on the way. Yes, it is. Josue made a good observation. So he says it looks like the top 1% go into debt only during bad times and for assets. That's exactly it. Josue, if you look this year, the top 1% actually did make an extra $1 trillion on their net worths. So, and a lot of them took PPP loans. Freaking Kanye West took several $1 million in PPP loans, even though he just made the billionaire list. So they borrow cheap money and buy assets on sale. Let's see here. Should I reduce and economize my expenses? I think we answered that. I've heard about life insurance and how I may not pay no taxes. Awesome. Okay, Jennifer asks, should we split up our reserves, i.e. sacred account, liquid, etc.? That's a very good question. So Jennifer, what I do personally is I keep 1 month of reserves in cash, okay? Just 1 month in cash. And the reason being is if something happens and I need quick money, usually it's not going to be more than a month worth of expenses. I keep 1 month in cash. Now, everything above that, I keep in my sacred account. Once I've maxed that out, then I keep it in gold and silver. And then, if I max out my gold and silver, if I own real estate, right now I don't own any real estate, but if I owned real estate, I would have an all-in-one loan or a line of credit on instead of a mortgage, and I'd put my money there as well. So that's how I would split it up. Other than that, though, I wouldn't split it up too much. Don says, I just read today that banks put $180 billion into life insurance. Brutally hard truth. That's true. So what Don said is completely true. Banks put $180 billion into life insurance cash values. So like, what are we doing, guys? Like, why would banks do that and we not do it? We're giving our money to them. That's where they got the money from in the first place. Steve says, what do you mean by reserve again? Which is the second step. So the second step is building reserves, right? So reserves means that I have savings. I have several months worth of savings. So usually for me, that's going to be 6 months. I don't do more than that. Other than that, I'm going to put money towards passive income producing investments, right? So that's what I would mean by reserves there. Let's see if there are any other questions. Okay, Andrew says, following up on the W-2 payroll questions. So we can't have our employer's payroll automatically move a percentage of our gross income into a sacred account before any taxes, medical, et cetera. I'm not sure if that's possible. The savings percentage can only be moved into the sacred account from our net paycheck income. Typically, to answer your question, Andrew, again, typically, no, your employer is not usually going to let you put your money from your paycheck directly into your sacred account as like an automatic deduction. It can be done, but your employer has to like be in on the deal. Like they have to be working with us and the insurance company to make that happen. Most employers don't care. So they're like, hey, we're not going to, we're not going to change our accounting methods to accommodate the fact that you want to put money in life insurance. That's fine. So when that happens, you would just get paid, and out of your pay, you would put money in your own sacred account. And that would be, totally up to you. Now, again, if you have an employer that's maybe a smaller business and you guys are tight and your boss is like, hell yeah, we'll change the accounting and we'll change the way we do payroll to accommodate this for you. Awesome. But I just don't see many employers that are willing to do that, even though it is possible to do. Awesome. That answered it. Okay, guys, I think that's all we had for tonight. Let me go ahead and just double check one more time if there are any other questions. Really quick, if you're on the webinar, by the way, tonight, if you have not ordered a copy of my new book, okay, this is called Blueprint to Financial Freedom. I wrote this this year. I wrote it in freaking 2 weeks. It was awesome, but I just got it published and released last week on Sunday night. We put it up for sale. So if you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F, like the number 2, B2F, Blueprint to Freedom, you can order a copy of it. We would love to get one out to you. You can get an e-copy, you can get a paper copy. So go ahead and do that. And I'll go ahead and make sure if you order one, we get it out to you right away. If you want to get one for people for the holiday season, great. We'd love to help with that as well. Anyways, other than that, I think that's all the questions we have. We'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. Thank you for watching. Make sure you do like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next week.